At 35, Michael had learned something simple. Love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes, it's quiet. He met Clara at a friend's dinner. Felt ordinary, yet somehow meant to be. She laughed at his jokes, remembered his coffee order, and really listened when he talked about things no one else cared about. Weeks became months. They walked home together after work, shared secrets over wine, and texted until midnight. To him, it felt like love, the kind that grows slowly, the kind that feels real. But to her, it was friendship, warm, safe, familiar. He never said the words. He was afraid to lose what little he had. But each time she smiled and called him my favorite friend, his heart sank just a bit more. One evening, she told him she'd met someone. Michael smiled, the way people do when their heart breaks quietly. He congratulated her, then walked home alone through the city lights that blurred into tears. At 35, he learned that love doesn't always end in a story. Sometimes, it just stays unspoken in the space between what could have been. Days turned into weeks. Michael tried to focus on work, on small routines, anything to keep his mind from drifting back to Clara. But every corner of the city, every familiar cafe, seemed to whisper her name. He realized that love wasn't always about being together. Sometimes it was about understanding what someone meant to you, even if the feeling wasn't returned. He spent long evenings walking through the park, watching the streetlights flicker on, and listening to the wind rustle through the trees. Each leaf seemed to remind him of a memory. The way Clara laughed when she spilled her coffee, the careless toss of her hair when she was frustrated, the quiet sighs she made when she was lost in thought. One rainy evening, he walked alone by the river, watching the reflections of the city lights ripple on the water. He let himself remember the laughter, the late-night talks, the way her hair caught the sunlight, not with longing, but with gratitude. "I loved her," he whispered to the wind. "And that's enough. I'll carry it with me, quietly always." At 35, Michael learned another lesson. The heart could heal, slowly, gently, and even unreturned love could teach a person to be braver, kinder, and more alive. He took a deep breath, feeling the cool air in his lungs, and for the first time in months he smiled. Michael decided to focus on himself. He reconnected with old friends, picked up hobbies he had abandoned years ago, and finally started reading the books he had always wanted to finish. He traveled to small towns, walked along mountain paths, and watched sunsets from unfamiliar rooftops. Every journey taught him something about patience, solitude, and self-love. He learned to enjoy silence, to laugh at small absurdities in life, and to cherish the ordinary. The morning coffee, the smell of rain on the pavement, the sound of pages turning in a library. Slowly, the ache of Clara's absence softened. It wasn't gone, but it no longer hurt in the same way. It became a quiet part of him, a gentle reminder of what it meant to truly care. One sunny afternoon, Michael wandered into a local bookstore. He reached for a worn copy of a poetry book, only to find another hand touching it at the same time. "Sorry," she laughed. "It seems we have the same taste in poetry." Her name was Emily. Her smile was warm, her curiosity infectious. They talked about their favorite authors, shared recommendations, and soon, the bookstore became their first meeting place. It felt different from the past. There was no intensity, no overwhelming longing, just curiosity, warmth, and a spark of connection. They met again and again. Coffee dates, long walks, evenings spent talking about everything and nothing. Michael realized that love could come gently, like sunlight filtering through leaves, not always in dramatic bursts of fireworks. Over time, he discovered that opening his heart again was not easy. He carried the memories of Clara with him, but he allowed Emily to carve a space beside them. They shared quiet moments, watching the rain, baking bread together, reading poetry aloud. He laughed more freely than he had in years, and every laugh felt like a small victory over the past. The heart, he realized, didn't forget. It simply learned to hope again. Michael began volunteering at a local library, helping young writers with their stories. He found joy in small connections, laughter, advice, and quiet conversations. Even the memories of Clara, once so sharp, now felt like gentle lessons, reminders of what it meant to truly care. One winter evening, walking home after a long day, he bumped into a woman holding a small dog. Her smile was gentle, her eyes curious. They started talking about the dog, then about life, books, dreams. It was a small, serendipitous moment, but Michael felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: possibility. By 37, Michael had discovered that life's happiness often comes quietly. He didn't need grand gestures or dramatic love stories. He had moments, small, sincere, and beautiful. Morning coffees with friends, walks in the park, the soft warmth of someone holding his hand. He smiled at the memories of past heartbreaks, not with regret, but gratitude. Every unreturned love, every tear, every quiet night alone had led him here. And now he knew. Love could be gentle, unexpected, and still enough to make life beautiful. Michael learned to embrace uncertainty. He no longer feared heartbreak because he knew the heart could recover. With Emily by his side, and with the lessons from the past etched in his memory, he felt ready for whatever life would bring next. He walked through the city streets, the wind on his face, the sun dipping low behind the buildings, and whispered to himself, "Life is long, love is patient, and happiness can be found in the quietest moments." After whispering those words to himself, Michael felt a gentle weight lift from his chest. The city streets, once overwhelming, now seemed inviting, full of possibilities. Emily squeezed his hand, her warmth grounding him in the present, and together they continued walking along the quiet riverbank. The next weeks brought small, meaningful changes. Michael and Emily decided to take a short trip to the countryside. They rented a small cabin near a lake, where mornings were filled with the sound of birds and evenings with the scent of pine. They cooked together, laughed at failed attempts at new recipes, and shared stories under the starlit sky. Michael discovered joy in these ordinary moments, realizing that love was not always in grand declarations but in everyday acts of care and attention. One rainy afternoon, Michael took out his old journal. Flipping through the pages, he saw letters he had written to himself after Clara, sketches of city streets, and notes about fleeting thoughts. Emily watched him, smiling softly. "You've grown so much," she said. "And you're still learning." Michael nodded. He understood now that growth was continuous, and that life offered lessons even in the quietest, unremarkable moments. Work also became a source of fulfillment. Michael started volunteering at a local community center, helping organize events for children and teaching photography workshops. Emily joined him whenever she could. Together, they discovered the joy of making a difference, however small, in other people's lives. It was in these acts that Michael found a deeper sense of purpose, the kind of satisfaction that had nothing to do with recognition or fame. As months passed, their relationship deepened. They shared morning coffees, spontaneous trips to nearby towns, and evenings reading poetry aloud in the living room. Michael noticed how much he had healed from the past. The memories of Clara no longer caused pain. They were gentle reminders of how love could shape a person. He no longer feared vulnerability, and with Emily, he felt safe to express his emotions freely. One autumn evening, Michael proposed a small, playful challenge. They would write letters to their future selves, sharing hopes, fears, and dreams. Emily eagerly agreed. They sealed the letters in a box and buried it beneath the old oak tree in the park where they had first met. "Someday," Michael said, "we'll dig these up and see how far we've come." Emily smiled, and Michael realized that hope, like love, could be patient and enduring. Life, as it unfolded, was not always perfect. There were days of rain, moments of exhaustion, and occasional disagreements. But Michael had learned that true happiness did not depend on perfection. It was the willingness to be present, to care for one another, and to cherish both the quiet and the extraordinary moments together. Winter arrived, dusting the city with soft snow. Michael and Emily decorated their small apartment with handmade ornaments and lights, creating a cozy world where laughter and warmth flourished. One night, as they sipped tea by the window, Michael reflected on his journey. The heartbreak, the long walks, the slow healing, and the unexpected arrival of Emily. He understood now that life was full of surprises, and that patience, resilience, and openness could lead to joy beyond imagination. Michael whispered again to himself, softly this time, "Life is long, love is patient, and happiness truly is in the quietest moments." But now, unlike before, it was not just a lesson. It was a lived truth. And as he held Emily's hand, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, he knew that this quiet happiness, patient, enduring, and profound, was exactly the life he had been waiting for. Emily's hand, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, he knew that this quiet happiness, patient, enduring, and profound, was exactly the life he had been waiting for. Days passed in a comforting rhythm, with mornings that started slowly and evenings that ended in gentle conversation. Michael began noticing the small patterns of life that had once gone unnoticed. The aroma of coffee drifting from a nearby cafe, the distant laughter of children in the park, the soft flutter of autumn leaves along the sidewalks. They decided to take a weekend trip to the countryside, renting a small cabin near a lake. Mornings were serene, with mist hovering above the water, and evenings were filled with the warmth of a fire and the sound of wind through the trees. Michael brought his camera everywhere, capturing fleeting moments of light, Emily's spontaneous smiles, and the quiet beauty of nature. It struck him that the happiness he had long sought was never about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was embedded in these gentle, shared moments. During their walks, they spoke about dreams they had once abandoned. Emily told stories of her childhood adventures, while Michael recalled the lessons from his past heartbreaks. For the first time, he shared his fears without hesitation. Fears of failure, of disappointment, of losing the delicate balance of peace he had finally found. Emily listened patiently, never judging, only holding his hand and offering quiet support. In these moments, Michael felt the profound depth of a love that was steady, forgiving, and endlessly nurturing. Returning to the city, life carried on with a comforting routine. Michael immersed himself in photography, exploring neighborhoods with a newfound perspective. He captured stray cats, street musicians, and children chasing bubbles, finding art in the ordinary. Emily accompanied him, offering her own observations, suggesting angles, and celebrating the unexpected beauty in mundane scenes. Michael marveled at how life seemed richer when shared with someone who truly noticed the world alongside him. They also began volunteering at the local library and community center, teaching photography to children, organizing small events, and simply offering companionship to those in need became a source of joy. Michael realized that fulfillment wasn't about recognition but about the small, tangible impacts one could have on others' lives. Emily thrived in these moments as well, and together they discovered a rhythm that balanced personal growth with shared contribution. Their relationship deepened naturally. There were quiet nights spent reading poetry, playful mornings experimenting with new breakfast recipes, and occasional disagreements that resolved quickly with understanding and empathy. Michael came to understand that love was not a single overwhelming moment, but a continuous practice of patience, attention, and care. Each day became a building block of shared life, and with each block, the foundation of trust and affection grew stronger. Summer arrived with long, sunlit days. Michael and Emily planned a train trip along the coast, stopping in small towns and exploring cobbled streets. They walked along beaches where waves broke against rocks, collected seashells, and explored hidden cafes where local musicians played. Michael documented their journey with his camera, capturing reflections, laughter, and the quiet magic of unfamiliar places. In their travels, they met locals who shared stories of resilience, love, and community. Michael felt inspired by these encounters, seeing how happiness and fulfillment often came in quiet, persistent ways rather than through grand achievements. Every small interaction reminded him that life was layered with beauty, waiting to be noticed. Evenings were for reflection and conversation. Michael wrote in his journal, noting not only sights but emotions, gratitude for recovery, relief at finding someone who understood him, and the sheer joy of simple companionship. He discussed the future with Emily, not with anxiety but as a shared vision, open to adventure, exploration, and the unpredictable joys life could offer. Winter transformed the city with its quiet snowfalls. Michael and Emily decorated their apartment with handmade ornaments and lights, creating a sanctuary of warmth. They hosted small gatherings, playing music, laughing, and enjoying simple meals with friends. Michael noted how happiness expanded when shared, and how the gentle presence of others amplified the quiet joys of life. They revisited their buried letters from the previous year, laughing at their own words and marveling at their growth. Michael reflected on the journey that had brought him here: heartbreak, healing, patience, and finally, Emily. Life had taught him resilience and the importance of living fully in each moment. Even as challenges arose, Michael no longer felt fear. Every difficulty, from work pressures to unexpected changes, was met with a calm ground.